I've analysed men like Tony Soprano in the past, but what makes Tony so different is his deep contrast in personality. We see an emotional side of him, where he would fall into depression, leading to a series of panic attacks, seeking acceptance through therapy. On the other side, we see him use violence, power and control to manipulate even his own family to climb the ranks of the Dimeo family. How exactly does one go from a nobody to becoming the leader of a crime family?
You're born to this shit. You are what you are.
Tony was born and raised in New Jersey in the late 50s. His father was a capo in the Dimeo crime family. A capo, also known as a captain, is a high-level status in the mafia hierarchy, usually having their own crew. Tony looked up to him, however the same can't be said for his mother. Livia and Tony didn't really have the best relationship. When asked to recall any good memories with her, he struggles to think of any.
What were some of the good experiences you remember as a child? The loving, warm ones?
But he was very close with his uncle, Junior Soprano, often playing catch with him as a kid. Junior was also a capo in the Dimeo family, like Tony's father, and they were each other's right-hand men. During the late 60s, Tony became very close with Dickie Moltisanti, a soldier in his father's crew. Dickie became a father-like figure to Tony. He also had a son named Christopher, who Tony would often refer as his own nephew. However, when Christopher was only 3 years old, Dickie was assassinated, and Tony had felt the responsibility to take care of Christopher. Later on, Tony attended Seton Hall University, but would shortly drop out to join the crime family and begin his criminal career.
All due respect, you got no idea what it's like to be number one.
Just like any other organisation, you don't get to the top of the table by luck. And although his father's influence did play a role in his success, Tony still had to start from the very bottom of the family, alongside Silvio Dante and his childhood friend, Jackie April. Tony quickly gained notoriety by robbing a card game alongside Silvio and Jackie. Ercole, the family boss at the time, was impressed and decided to take Tony and Jackie under his wing, gaining more influence and power. At the age of 22, he marries Carmela, where they would have a daughter, and soon after a son, Anthony Soprano Jr. At the age of 23, he commits murder for the first time, fully committing to the organisation, and continues to climb the ranks of the mafia. And just at the age of 27, his father falls ill and passes away, leaving Tony to inherit his position as a capo, making him the youngest capo in the family. His father's loyal soldiers, Salvatore and Paulie, are passed on from his father. Alongside them, Silvio Dante and Christopher, who I had mentioned earlier, would also be working in Tony's crew, where they would run businesses like the Bada Bing strip club, an auto shop, and other smaller ventures. Eventually, Ercole steps down as the family boss after he was sentenced to prison, leading to Jackie becoming the family boss. Business was running smoothly. However, after 3 years, he was diagnosed with intestinal cancer. With Jackie in and out the hospital, he wasn't fit to run the family. So Tony took the opportunity to take many of his duties as the new up-and-coming boss. Unfortunately, Tony isn't the only ambitious one. His uncle Junior also had his eyes on the crown, leading to conflicts within the family. As tension is rising, Tony would strategically allow Junior to become the boss of the family.
Look at him. He's content. Thinks he's the king of kings. Truth is, every decision is made by me.
In hopes of diverting federal attention onto him. Although Junior was titled the boss, deep down everyone in the family knew that Tony was the one running things.
Point is, he's got the title. He's a happy fucking camper. The house is secure.
Yeah, knowing now we got a brand new lightning rod on top to take the hits.
It's business. We're soldiers. We follow codes.
Tension rose between Junior and Tony. The issue was Tony was not set to be a worker or be under control, so inevitably things would go south, especially when Tony's mother would expose the fact that Tony would often visit a psychiatrist.
I'm sure he's telling the psychiatrist it's all his mother's fault. What are you talking about, a psychiatrist?
Yeah, a psychiatrist. He's been seeing one for a while now.
Now there's a number of things to point out, such as why would a mother want her brother and son to go to war? Or why is visiting a psychiatrist such a bad thing? Well, as mentioned earlier, as a kid Tony never had a good relationship with his mother. As a matter of fact, she grew envious of his power and influence, so she exposes him. There's nothing wrong with visiting a psychiatrist, but when you're at a level of power and a leader to many, they're typically known to show no signs of weakness. But visiting a psychiatrist may show signs of instability and that Tony may be a snitch, exposing any plans within the family. Fearing that Tony may be a liability for the family, Junior would hire 2 hitmen on Tony. This displays a lot about the relationship between his family. Not only was he betrayed by his mother, but by his uncle as well. Tony violently retaliates. He ordered the deaths of many members of Junior's crew, like Chucky Signal, Mikey Palmis, and also his capo, Philly Passeri. The FBI eventually imprisoned Junior and 2 of his men. With Junior's crew in prison or dead, Tony steps up to become the boss of the family and leads them into the next chapter.
Those who want respect, give respect.
Tony was not only responsible for his crew, but now the entire family. He continued to operate in the legal and illegal avenues, but scaling them further. To mention a few: construction, real estate, protection, loan sharking, gambling, auto theft, and even a gentleman's club I mentioned earlier. The list goes on and on. He also promotes Paulie as the leader of their crew, and Silvio to become his consigliere. Tony also undergoes many issues, like one of his close members, Big Pussy Salvatore, being an informant to the FBI, thereby shooting him and dumping his body off a boat, which heavily impacted Tony as he had already been through betrayals from his uncle and mother. There's more events, but I'll mainly focus on the financial side of the Mafia family and how exactly they made their money. As mentioned earlier, Tony would often be in construction and real estate, where Tony would manipulate land contracts, extort construction companies, and control building projects through no-show jobs and stealing from the construction sites for profit. Tony would also make money through protecting various businesses. When businesses are unable to go to the police for help, they would go to people like Tony, where he would provide protection in exchange for money. Similar to protection business, we have loan sharking. When business owners or people that are in debt need money quick, they borrow money from Tony, where they would have to pay the money back on top of interest payments. And if they didn't pay the money back on time, well...
Where's my fucking money?
Next, Tony owned a gentleman's club called the Bada Bing, which would often be a meeting spot for Tony and his crew. But as well as this, he likely laundered illegal money through the Bada Bing. However, in the show there was no actual evidence of this. Tony also had smaller schemes, such as telephone calling scams, stealing anything and everything, hijacking trucks and containers, contraband cigarettes, drug trafficking and arms dealings. Last but not least, he would also be in
Waste management consultant.
Now, breaking down his figures, it is estimated that Tony Soprano would have accumulated a staggering $5 to $6 million in the early 2000s, which nowadays would be the ballpark of around $10 million, and it would be a lot more, but due to Tony's heavy gambling addiction and money management, it was estimated much lower. He would also have to spend a large proportion of his money on payrolls and lawyer fees. Of course, this number is just an estimate, but upon doing research, a popular post caught my eye, where somebody would break down Tony's annual income, concluding to $830,000 yearly, which does make sense as Tony served as the boss from 1998 to 2006. And let's not forget, Tony does all of this while suffering mental issues and many ongoing conflicts throughout the seasons, not just between the family, but the FBI too. Let me know if you agree with this breakdown of Tony Soprano, whether you think he made more or less, and why.